This here is what the gate would have looked like, and it would have had 4 posts and 4 bases so that it could be lifted up for people and camels and things to go through. And the thing that I want you to know is that this entrance here was the only way into the tabernacle. Just like Jesus now, because he died on the cross for us, is our one way into heaven. And what's really cool and what points to that is the furniture in the tabernacle. So if you look at it, you can see that it's laid out in the shape of a cross. So all the way to the end, it's laid out in the shape of a cross. So the Israelites, not knowing this, but every day they would come to the gate with all their sins and complete all these steps to be forgiven. And they still couldn't get as far as the high priest could in the Holy of Holies. But what they didn't know was that Jesus was going to come and make a way for them to have a relationship with God forever and to be forgiven.
This is a bronze laver. So they received the bronze from the ladies in Israel. They gave up their mirrors that were made of bronze. And just as a mirror reflects us, we should reflect Jesus. And also the water, they would wash their hands and their feet. Their feet showed that they had a holy walk in their life, and their hands, everything they held had significance. Also, they had just made a sacrifice, and they were going to enter into the holy place. The water, they washed themselves, but Jesus washed us clean when he died on the cross. Theirs was temporary, ours is everlasting.
Welcome to the holy place. So this is a table of shewbread, and the 12 loaves or cakes represent the 12 tribes of Israel. So the priest would eat the loaves every Sabbath or every week. And like every item in the tabernacle, the bread symbolizes a form of friendship with God. And even though we've messed up, God still wanted a personal relationship with him. And even though the Israelites couldn't have that, and only the priest could have that, Jesus came and he provided a way for us to have a personal relationship with Christ.
This is the menorah. This is our version. This is more of what it would have looked like. So this was pure gold, very heavy. So the menorah was symbolizing and foreshadowing that Jesus is the light of the world. So whenever you take a candle and you place it into a dark room, it's going to light up the room. Well, that's what Jesus did. He came into a very dark room, very sinful, broken room, which was the world. And this is actually supposed to be an oil lamp. We did the best we could. And an oil lamp, this menorah, was continually burning, just like Jesus, the light of the world, was and is continually burning. So that's a little bit the symbolism behind the menorah. Yeah.
You have just entered the Holy of Holies. And the Holy of Holies in the Old Testament was the place where they met with God. And whenever you came in, you had to enter through a veil. And whenever the veil was torn, we were able to come into the presence of God. We were now able to meet with God. We don't have to wait outside like the Israelites did, hoping that the high priest wouldn't mess up. We can come in and we can enter knowing that we are forgiven. Because the Israelites did not have that reminder, they did not have that assurance, they had 3 reminders that God was with them and that he knew he would keep his promises. And so one of them was Aaron's staff. Aaron's staff was kept in here to remind the Israelites that God had given them a way to find forgiveness. He had given them that forgiveness. And Aaron was the one who interceded for them first. And we now have Jesus interceding for us. We don't have to hope that the high priest intercedes and is able to get to God. We know that we can, and Jesus has interceded for us. There was also the 10 Commandments. Jesus fulfilled the law when he died, and whenever we mess up now, we know that we can come to God, and we know that we can come knowing we are forgiven. We don't have to hope that we will get forgiven. We were forgiven before we made that mistake. There's manna, the bread of life. The manna was in there to remind the Israelites that Jesus had guided them through the desert, and that God had guided them through the desert, and that He had given them that food and that nourishment. Whenever we now know that Jesus will give us that nourishment, when we come to God, we often forget that we are entering into the presence of a holy God. And one of the reminders for the Israelites was the rope. And there was a rope tied to the priest's foot. And you might think of it just as a safety line in case the high priest died, but it also can serve as a reminder that when we come in, we should have a safety, like we are entering in the presence of a holy God, and if we cannot come without a clean heart. We need to come with a pure heart and be open, and we can't hold things back. We need to remember that, like, you could have died in the Old Testament without doing that. And I feel like the rope is so much more than just a safety line. It's a reminder that we need to come openly before the throne of God.